Hey, we're here and we're chatting with Miss Helen Harrison, who's the author of Inner Wealth from Pain to Purpose. And Helen is all about pain holding the seeds of purpose, and she has spent 17 years guiding people through life's highs and lows. So we're going to have a conversation about grief to growth, lessons about adoption, loss, suicide, and the transformative power of resilience and joy, and so much more. Helen from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, how are you today?
I'm really good, Robert. Thank you.
You're
Really
very
good to
welcome.
be here.
Yeah, and it's great to have you here. We'll have a conversation about some real heavy topics, but some real important topics. So what are you all about? We introduced you real quick about some keywords in your book, but what has you really interested these days, and what are you doing to help and change the world?
Beautiful. So my driver is to inspire people. So many people get stuck. They get caught up in the heaviness of things that have happened in their life. So I'm all about inspiring people to move some of that. And I do it through lots of different ways, whether it be marriage counseling, therapy, coaching. But my latest book, a book to really start creating some conversations like the one we're about to have.
And is the Inner Wealth the new book?
Yes. Yep.
Well, wonderful.
Inner wealth. Yep.
Okay, so Inner Wealth from Pain to Purpose. And if you're someone like me who likes to follow along while you listen, you can go on Amazon right now and search Inner Wealth and find the wonderful looking book with the red cover, Inner Wealth from Pain to Purpose by Helen Harrison. And you know this whole idea, Helen, of you need to get help, right? You can't get stuck in your own patterns, your own thinking. You need to see a therapist about whatever issue. I always feel like I see a therapist now regularly, luckily, but for many years I thought I was on one extreme or the other. I thought either, well, I don't have really problems worth talking about. Other people have it way worse than me. Why would I waste a therapist's time? Won't I be boring them? And then I would swing to the other side of the scale and I would say, I have so much going on. They'll be so overwhelmed or hate me. They can't possibly tackle all these issues. I have like 15 things hitting me right now. So is that common? Are people afraid to ask for help or to contact a therapist such as yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the hardest things to do is to actually recognize in yourself that actually I need a bit of a hand. And we tend to overthink it. And I think a big thing is we minimize it. Oh, it's not that bad. But I look back, I was in my 30s when I first stepped into my therapist office, who I met a couple of years ago, which was really lovely to see her after all these years. But I remember walking in and just so much, I suppose, shame. And there is a level of vulnerability. There's a lot that comes with making that first step. So that is a very common feeling that people feel. And they often think it's going to get better, But it gets to a point where actually, no, I need to do something about this. Yeah.
So when people come to you in this way and they say, "Hey, Helen, I'm stuck. I need some help." What do they usually say? What are the common problems people are having these days?
Oh, gosh. A lot of people have got a lot of anger inside, a lot of sadness, resentment. A big thing I see, which is what I felt, was an emptiness. It's like this constant drive for the outside world, the outer wealth, whether it be in relationships or career or house, car, investment, whatever, all that outer wealth, yet I've still got this emptiness inside. And that's where people start realizing that they're not going to find their happiness outside. There's actually about finding it inside. And so that's a big driver in writing my book. That's why it's called Inner Wealth, is how do you find that happiness? It is not outside of yourself. It's actually inside yourself. Does that sort of answer your question?
It does. Yeah, you're saying that people are chasing the next thing, right? If only I got that car,
Yes.
I'd be happy. If only I got that house, I'd be happy. And you end up like wasting who knows how many years, decades, just chasing thing after thing and ignoring the actual problem. And many people live their whole lives without even solving this or being aware of it. And so how do we attack this? It seems like just a huge deal for a lot of people. So if someone
Mm.
comes to you, they're unhappy, they're looking for all of these things outside. How do we begin to approach this problem?
Very slowly and very gently, because it depends on the amount of trauma that somebody's got in their body. But the biggest thing I do is support people and help people heal. And what I mean by heal is learn how to have awareness inside your own body and start listening to what's actually going on inside. So I know I'll go back to when I first started seeing a counsellor, and she said to me, "So how do you feel, Helen?" I had no idea. It was sad, mad and glad. That was about it. I
Yeah.
had learned to disassociate and shut down. I don't do feelings. It's too freaking painful to do feelings. So I help people unnumb. I help people stop the disassociation that we do to protect ourselves. So I just meet people wherever they're at. But my book is about wherever you're at, you will find parts of you inside my story. It's quite a unique story. I talk from birth right up to now. So whether you have lost somebody in suicide or a loved one, whether it's a breakdown of a long-term relationship. For me, I was adopted. So a lot of my trauma started way back when I was born, because the body remembers everything. You know, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. The body's incredible. It knows and has lived everything you've ever lived. But we are taught from quite a young age to not express what we're feeling, what's going on. So we just learn to store it away. I call it a little squirrel putting their nuts away for winter. But what happens is it begins to build and build and build and build. And then come present day, you can be quite an angry person. So my book, it's called Inner Wealth, but it really is code for inner worth and having your own self-worth. I didn't realize that when I was writing this. This has been my own personal process through this, but it's inner worth, and it's actually really valuing yourself and loving yourself, because if you do that, your level of self-compassion will increase, your level of self-care, you will be more mindful. You'll start to live more in the present moment instead of trying to work out the future, which brings up anxiety, thinking about the past, which is worry. It's learning how to be right here, right now. Yeah.
And that's a great message. So it seems like we're saying so far that it's important to have this self-respect and this self-care and kindness. And it seems like the jumping off point, as you're saying, is to express yourself and to have awareness. Like you mentioned about like all these different emotions, and that many times we only know like two or three, right? We say, oh, well, I'm the halt, they call it, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I'm only one of
Yes,
those.
yes,
And then you
yes.
like expand your vocabulary. Like sometimes I'll see like some of those wheels of emotions, right? And I'm like, I'll kind of look at it. I'm like, ooh, there's like the ones on the outside, and there's the more specific ones.
Yeah.
And it seems like we just expand that vocabulary. Like they call it the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, right? Like the Eskimos have no words for war, but 200 words for ice. So if the more you use these words, the more you'll put it into action, and it's this feedback loop. And so you mentioned you have this book, right? This memoir. And memoirs, I think, are great because if we read a textbook, we know what we're getting, right? It's dry, it's bullet points, but you read someone's story, it grabs you, it hooks you, and it feels a lot less like work, right? You can kind of go through the story, and it's a great way to let your guard down and find out from you about all of your adventures, good and bad. And it's just kind of it's more relaxing, right? You get a better perspective seeing the world through someone else. And so you say you cover all these years, right? But what's always interesting are the struggles or the turning points. So do you think, is there anything noteworthy to talk about that is particularly interesting and valuable in this book as far as the
Mm.
struggles or the turning points?
Yes. So at 19, my younger brother took his life. He was 19, I was 20, and I did not know how to deal with it. It was too traumatic. I just didn't even have the vocabulary. I really went into shock. So what I did is I put it away inside of me, sort of in this box deep inside. I always knew it was there. But I started to become quite angry. anxiety, panic attacks, and just had a real fear. I really struggled. And while that was going on, I also had a thing that I thought, because I'm adopted, and I thought, oh, if I find my biological mother, I'll find me, and all this pain that I'm feeling and this emptiness will go away. This is how my brain thought. So I went on a bit of a hunt, and circumstances had it. She had put a veto, so I wasn't able to find out any information for a long time. Finally, at 28, I could, and she wanted to keep me in her path. So that's another story, which is in the book. But my point being, I had always thought that if I found her, I'd then find me. So then I could start healing some of this pain I had inside. Well, as destiny had it, I wasn't able to find her. And I remember this particular day, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to find me on my own. And it was in that point where I started seeking support. And I also had to start opening that box up, the pain of my brother. And as I started working on myself, I actually started to see value in it. And I thought, oh, there's something in this. And this is where that seed started to really germinate, that I want to work with other people. You can only work with family and friends for so long who
Right.
you don't work with. So I then trained, as a counsellor, coach, hypnotherapy, all of that. But point being, due to something so tragic and horrific, that put me on my career, put me on my purpose and my calling. But then if we proceed a little bit along in my life, 3 years ago, I had another sibling who took her life. So that, again, I went into shock, but this time I knew how to be there for myself. I knew how to heal. And I call it post-traumatic growth. And that is the driver of the book. It is a book about grief. Grief can be the ending of a marriage, which I also write in there. I hadn't realised, but it is a book about grief. It's got number 1 on Amazon, the grief of suicide. When I wrote this, I did not know any of this. I did not know that the title would be Inner Wealth. But it was, the point I'm trying to make is there's a calling. It's listen. But you can only listen to your calling when you've cleared out some of your trauma and some of your pain. So if anybody who's listening to this goes, well, that's all well and good, Helen, but yeah, I have got pain inside of me, or I have got resentment, or I have got such a busy monkey mind, I just think all day long, then this book could be really, really helpful, because it will give you, I have healing practices, I have questions, I have things that will prod and poke you to go, oh, okay, there's something in this. Yeah.
Yeah, see things differently. And that makes sense that we get locked on our own stories, don't we? Like you said, well, if only I can find my bio mom, then things will be different. Then I'll know myself. And why? Because that's the story you told yourself on repeat. And we can just get stuck in these patterns, it seems, if we don't listen to ourselves, if we don't clear that clutter first, and then just ask those important questions and get that helpful perspective. So I love
Yeah.
the post-traumatic growth concept and this idea of turning the bad into the good and being grateful
Yes.
for all these adversities that you go through. And so as far as this conversation about grief and about suicide, is there anything that surprised you about it, or is there anything that like you think needs to be added to the conversation so that we understand about grief or suicide?
Yes. You've just got to start. I write in my book, baby steps. It's from really going inward and looking at yourself, and start with tiny little steps. It could be from them when you wake up, noticing your thoughts, or starting a gratitude journal, or start going for a walk. But what has come out of this book, which I hadn't realised, which I use in therapy, is first of all having an awareness exactly where you are and what you're feeling and what you're thinking. But then with the awareness, that goes into acceptance. So with grief, we don't want any of this to happen, but it is. We don't like it, we don't want it, but it just is. And so it's surrendering to that, trusting that, and with grief, we're all so different. But the biggest thing is you can't just go, right, I'm done now. You actually have to feel this. You've got to go through it. But I think the biggest part of this, so we have awareness, we have acceptance. The biggest part is the authentic action. You've got to move your arms and legs in the direction that is of value to you, which is part of the reason of writing the book. It's I'm moving in the direction, being on purpose, and really want to create these conversations that people can shift their grief and their sadness, no matter how horrific it is, you can. And this is a book that could be a stepping stone to help people realize that. If we go a little bit deeper, I felt a real connection with my sister. She's the one who sort of gave me the courage to put this into a book, because the fear Helen wouldn't have. I wouldn't have done this. But I think it's too important, and I know that it already has. The feedback I've got from people has been incredible. So when it comes to grief and suicide, you can learn to find a new way of living. You never forget, but you find a new way of showing up in the world. But it's not by sitting on your hands. You've actually got to do. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to actually do the work. No one will do it for you. It won't magically get cured. And it's even a frightening prospect to just ignore it. And then, like you say, the squirrel nuts keep getting built up. And then if another crisis hits, which it will, it's life, right? It's only a matter of time before money event, health event, life event, you, loved one, like something's coming in the future. And if you don't heal the past, then you'll deal with the past plus this new thing, and we don't want that. So you're saying that it's important to go through the grief, experience it, have acceptance, have awareness, and perform these baby steps. Take walks, exercise journal, take in your thoughts, gratitude journal, all those other things. And so you say that your book kind of has this interesting mixture, right? There's the memoir, there's the stories, and there's all these different exercises. Is there one that you think is particularly like quirky or interesting or outside the box that you think is worth mentioning on a podcast to get us really curious about the book?
Gosh, that's a good question. Something that's really, really helpful is to be able to, and I write about it, to be able to actually name what you're feeling and allow it to be there in your body, which is often as humans we don't want to. So creating space and time to allow it. I call it nail, Nail, name it, and then allow it, and then investigate. Okay, have I felt this before? Where's this coming from? Is it present day stuff, or is it from way back there? And then the owl of no is love. So love yourself enough to give yourself what you need. Do you need a cup of tea? Do you need to go for a walk? This is real basic stuff. It's often the most simplest things that are the most helpful. But I think as humans we can complicate things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just slowing it right down, and just start wherever you are. Sometimes it can just feel so overwhelming. But what is interesting about my book is that some parts you'll flow through and other parts will trigger perhaps something in you. And so this is where you use the nail. Notice, okay, I'm actually really upset by what I've just read in the book here. So allow it, name it, and investigate. Okay, where's this coming from? Why? Because my story is actually insignificant to what it brings up in you, the reader. And it's for you to explore that, because, any time you have a triggering, there's a wound there. Yeah. So I don't know which one specifically to actually grab onto because there's so many. Yeah. You're going to have to read it.
Yeah, you have to find out for yourself. But I do love the nail concept, and it reminds me of maybe a year or so ago. I heard this advice of like, well, if you're stressed out about something, then write it down and write it down in a specific location and give yourself a specific window of time. That way, you can be like, hey, this task I have, I'm worried about, like I can quiet my mind because I say, hey, mind, I'm working on the problem, I'm not ignoring it, and I know where to find it. And it's just like little activities like that of just saying like, hey, you're trying to use your monkey mind to solve this, and it doesn't know how, but you use some of these techniques from Miss Helen Harrison in the Inner Wealth book, and you say, I know it seems silly if you haven't done it yet, but go through the NAIL process, the NIAL, and
Yeah.
just try it and see what happens. And if that doesn't work, try the technique again or try a different technique. But there's something to be said about someone else saying like, hey, this has worked for me, this has worked for others. Go through the steps, go through the process, and you don't have to go it alone, and you can just use these techniques to get it done. And so in our last few minutes here, I want to make sure that we cover what is important to you and what excites or interests you. So in this conversation we're having about inner wealth, going from pain to purpose, overcoming the past, not being stressed out about the future, all of that, is there a missing question in our conversation? Is there something I should be asking you, I just don't know to ask you?
Why? That's a really good question. I suppose I think you may have covered it. What was the driver to write this? Um, yeah, and it was through. I was actually moving house, and it had created a lot of stirring as a child. Uh, we moved a lot, so it created a lot of movement inside me, which was interesting because I hadn't felt that for decades. And that was a stirring. And also, my son was traveling around the world hitchhiking. So I used my push and pull method, which is awareness, acceptance, and authentic action. I had to trust what he was doing. He was in Afghanistan, he was in Iran, he was in places that are very different to what I know. So the driver behind the book was through all of my own fear being activated and wanting to share with the listener. I don't come from a place that I've got it all together. I come from a place to inspire you and to perhaps start just inquiring, having a little look inside, because you can't work this out in your head. It comes from in the body and actually feeling and being with the pain. Yeah, that's probably what I would end with, is just have an open mind. And if this book triggers you, that's great, because it means there's little wounds there from the past that you perhaps haven't healed or looked at.
Ooh, I think about that all the time. If something upsets me or makes me fearful, it's like, well, that's not a thing to avoid. That's a thing to investigate further, because why did that trigger
Yes,
you? And all this
yes.
time you've been avoiding it, and you have to deal with it eventually. So why not now, when you're doing it on your own terms and you're being proactive? And that's why we're here, right? That's why someone listened to this part into the podcast, because they know that there's a better way of going about this, especially in this pursuit of self-knowledge, self-love, and a deep connection to purpose. And you have this book, Inner Wealth, From Pain to Purpose, written by Miss Helen Harrison, and this website, powerofchange.com.au, where there's marriage counseling, individual counseling, and transformational coaching. And so if someone's mind is just full of these great ideas, right? You mentioned these techniques, mentioned these ideas. If someone says, I got a little bit of a taste because it's a podcast, but I need to take that next step with Helen and access more resources, where should someone go? What should they do?
Well, you can go onto my website. You'll find a lot on there. You can go onto Amazon, look at the book. I've also got a YouTube channel, Helen Harrison, where, everything we've talked about each week, I talk more about that. So I'm easy to find.
Very
Helen
nice. And
Harrison or
so
Power of Change. Yes.
so we and so the Helen Harrison, the exact username on YouTube is Helen M Harrison. So and I've just subscribed, and there's many amazing videos there, including how to get wealthy on the inside, living in fear versus living in power. If you're rich but you're not happy, here's why. So it's always great to find another excellent YouTube content provider, and it takes 2 seconds. You go, you click subscribe, and that way Helen will be in your feed moving forward, and you can enrich your knowledge and empower yourself. So that's Helen M Harrison on YouTube. And then we mentioned on Amazon, that book is Inner Wealth, From Pain to Purpose. So you can find out all about Helen's journey that she's mentioned a few times here, which has led her to dedicate her life to helping others find their own path to healing and empowerment. This story will inspire you to embrace your own challenges, uncover your inner wealth, and step into the life you were always meant to lead. And then powerofchange.com.au. If you're ready to have a fabulous relationship and life, but you don't know how, then this is exactly the place you need to go. That is powerofchange.com.au is the website. Inner Wealth from Pain to Purpose is the book. And then Helen M. Harrison is that YouTube channel where you can get up to date in whatever format suits you, right? Print book, audiobook, YouTube channel, website.
Yeah.
And especially if this is a path that you want to take, there's contact information on that website so you can reach out and take that next step with Helen, have that conversation just about that power of change that's within you. She provides individual coaching, marriage counseling, psychotherapy, and empowerment coaching. powerofchange.com.au. Before I let you go, Helen, it's time for the scary part of the show where I try to stump you. I try to put you on the spot by asking about a helpful quote or lesson that has served you in your journey. So what comes to mind as far as a helpful quote or lesson?
Okay, I've actually got this in my book, and the quote is, well, it's not a quote, I wrote it myself. For the courageous hearts who understand that finding yourself is the greatest journey and healing is the greatest gift. And I think in a nutshell, that sort of says it. Yeah, but no one
Yes.
is going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. Yeah, but there's
Yes.
amazing people out there who can support you.
Yes. So take that first step and get educated. That way you can find yourself and heal yourself and get on that path to a better life, because it's not about you, right?
Yes.
There are other people in your world that they can be angry at you if you don't behave appropriately, but if you're a nice, caring, positive person who takes care of themselves, who takes care of others, there's a ripple effect, isn't there? They say
Uh,
hurt people, but the opposite is true as long as you do the own work on your own psychology with the help of Miss
yes.
Helen Harrison, author of Inner Wealth from Pain to Purpose. And thank you, Miss Helen, for stopping by, giving us so many great ideas on this path to self-recovery. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. It's been a brilliant chat. Loved it.
All right, very nice.